Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. My name is Ashton. I'm here joined by my other host of the ECR podcast, Zach, and we are joined here, Zach, with a special guest, Blaine. How are you guys doing? It's a nice, hot summer day. How's everything going over there?
Blaine, I'll kick it to you first.
Doing great. Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me on. It's been a long time coming to come back on here now, and I always enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to talk about kind of the early portion of the off season here with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, getting into your brain a little bit about the last couple weeks. I've been out of town, so getting back into diving back into getting all the Rams news and trying to figure out OTAs and what happened during them and things like that. So I'm really glad that you are on to help
hmm
me understand what's been going on the last couple weeks.
Yeah, as we like to say, we don't try to pretend on this podcast that we're like some insiders or experts. We're fan analysis and we understand our place there. And we're so happy to have your expertise here, kind of get a lens into the team and like what they've been doing and some of your awesome work for Turf Show Times. Uh, by the way, guys, if you don't mind, if you like this content podcast, please comment on Podbean or podcasting choice that you guys have, or please like and subscribe on YouTube. First off, Blaine, just general reaction to the draft. What did you think about it? Were you happy? Do you think they hit all position groups you thought they needed to? Did they get a few people right, wrong? Just your general reaction there.
Yeah, no. Overall, I really like the draft class. I don't think the draft honestly could have gone much better for them, especially in the first round. I mean, you look at this team coming into the offseason and they needed defense, right? And I think the first 14 picks were all on the offensive side of the ball. So with that, you obviously had some of the top end
Yeah,
defensive
nice.
talent that dropped, and one of those players was Jared Verse. So obviously, I was kind of secretly hoping for maybe selfishly hoping for Brock Bowers there in the first round for a trade up there. But Jared Verse was a good consolation prize, if you want to call him that. But yeah, I was really elated they got Verse. Should provide a good option for them on the edge. And then just as a late guy that I like, I love the pick of Bo Limmer. Just they really needed some center depth after losing both Coleman Shelton and Brian Allen this offseason. Steve Avila is obviously moving over to center. So having a guy like Bull Emmer, who I thought was much more talented than a sixth-round draft pick, to get him there, I think he's going to be a really important piece of this offensive line over the coming years.
How did you
hmm
feel
I'm
when they also got Fisk? I mean, it going watching the behind the grind, it's like they planned it pretty much after they got Jared Verse. They're like, we have to get Fisk. It seemed like it
Yeah,
was had to happen.
Yeah, no, I love the Fisk pick too. I think there's some discussion to be had on how much they gave up to move up to that spot and take him. I think that there's something to talk about there. But hey, if you see a guy, go get your guy. And if you like him, like I don't have an issue with that at all. I think Fisk was a great fit. He made my Snead snacks list. So he has that quick get off that they look for, very super explosive. And but like you said, and like we kind of saw him in behind the grind, and if you watch if you see any of the Florida State highlights and stuff like that, you see kind of how they play off of each other, him and Verse. So to pair them together at the next level is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked about at least like how, because I would say the majority consensus in the fan base was they're very much against going to get Brock Bowers. What about Brock Bowers did you think was kind of enticing to this team? Because at least from my perspective, I love the way that he could be either a tight end or wide receiver. And I think McVay has been so seeking that so much, like with Jacob Harris and a bunch of other project players, that he's wanted that type of player to kind of have in his system. And I thought Brock Bowers was that perfect player to go up and get if they had the chance to.
Yeah, I thought he would have been a perfect fit in this offense. Like you said, he's like people see the tight end label in front of his name, and he's so much more than a tight end. I mean, he can line up in line, but that's not kind of where you want to be playing Brock Bowers. You want to be playing him out wide and in the slot, and he can just do so much. I think he would have unlocked another dimension of this offense, especially kind of as you look towards him potentially moving into more like 12 personnel and things like that. He would have worked, I think, perfectly in that sort of
Yeah.
11 and a half personnel that they run. And it just kind of watching some Bowers tape, he kind of does a lot. He kind of did a lot of Cooper Cup type things at Georgia, and I think just kind of you look at Cup the last 2 years, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Cooper Cup, and I'm hoping that he bounces back and has a great year this season. But I kind of saw him as a kind of a Cup. I don't want to say replacement, but just like just Cup. I just
It's a Cup clone or something like. That's what McVay's looking for. He's looking for the next Cooper Cup, the next person who can provide a multifaceted opportunity for this Rams offense.
Exactly. So I think he would have done well there. But again, I mean, they landed with Jared Verse, and obviously no complaints there.
Yeah, does it shock you the Raiders took him? Because I always thought that was such an interesting pick, only if they keep on trying to only use him as a tight end. I think it's a great pick for the Raiders if they use him as a wide receiver more.
Yeah, it's very. I found it very interesting. I think you kind of look at what they did, and I think you can kind of compare it a little bit to what the Rams did with Fisk and Verse, where
Yeah.
they found these college teammates that kind of played well together and brought them back together. And Mayer and Bowers obviously played together at Georgia. Mayer kind of more as that blocking tight end that is also a very very good receiver, and Bowers is a good receiver as well. But I mean, just kind of how the draft it did surprise me. We just kind of how the draft fell. Obviously, there wasn't a quarterback worth taking in that spot, just with all the quarterbacks going so early. So yeah, they if that's how their board fell and Bowers is top player on their board, I guess that's the direction they went.
Yeah.
It seemed like going back to that behind the grind. It seemed like they tried to get up higher and they just couldn't. No one wanted to trade out of the spot that they had.
Yeah,
Well, they were
that's
targeting the Falcons. They were targeting the Falcons, and the Falcons didn't want to move. They wanted to draft a QB for a 5-year plan and just start him after 5 years. It's nuts, in my opinion.
Well, one of the scenes, it was McVay was talking to Washington. Like, so I don't know if he was trying to see if they were going to stay at number 2.
Yeah,
or what,
they were feeling with most teams. I think the only team realistically that was going to move out of top 10 that was thinking about it was the Falcons. And from everything I read, it just seemed like the Falcons turned down like decent hauls just because their GM wanted Phoenix that bad after paying, Cousins like a bag.
Yeah, it's just kind of it was one of those things where there were reports during the draft. The Rams were trying really hard to move up, and I think that the guy that they were trying to target was probably Bowers, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're too disappointed that the Burst fell as far as he did at 19. I think if you looked at most mock drafts before the draft, not many would have had him falling that far.
And let's be real, the Rams really needed the defense picture. Like, losing Aaron Donald, you had to focus on the defense. And I think bringing up, again, you can't replace Aaron Donald, especially with one person. So you really have to try do it as best you can with as many people as you can. And I think Jared Verse and Fisk are a good shot at least masking the void of Aaron Donald.
And what do you make of their choice to go D-line in their first 2 picks and not addressing cornerback? Because at least my read on the situation coming out of last year, I thought we had a lot of like holes, especially in safety. I thought cornerback struggled, but that was like part of the growth experience with these young cornerbacks, and safety really needed to be patched up. I think clearly Rams disagreed with me. They thought cornerback was the issue. They brought in 2 veterans. Do you think not going with a young cornerback in the first 2 rounds was a mistake versus going D-line?
I don't know about a mistake. I don't think I call it a mistake, but I wouldn't have faulted them either if they would have gone that direction. That's the direction that I went in my shadow draft. If we're being honest, I with I when I went to the combine in February and just like listening to the players talking during their individual press conferences and things like that. Terry and Arnold was a guy that absolutely stood out and just exuded confidence as this guy that I think he's gonna be a really good number one cornerback for defense. He went to the Detroit Lions, obviously, but that's with him and Quinion Mitchell there. I would have understood trying to get a young playmaker at cornerback, but I think just kind of going back to Zach's point of losing Aaron Donald, and I mean like you said, you're not going to be able to replace Donald, but if you can be able to find players that can rush the passer from different areas, Fisk from the interior versus from the edge, you get that you get that pass rush. But yeah, there were some talented corners. That might have been the direction that I would have gone and tried to get an edge there in the second, or even later on in the draft. There was some value, but yeah, it was certainly a need. And even though they did sign both Darius Williams and Trey White's obviously coming off the Achilles and ACL injuries last 2 years, so it was a direction that. I mean, they didn't adjust the position at all in the draft. So I was surprised I was more surprised that they just didn't take one at all.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've always thought at least the two safeties we have in Kobe Durant and the other one from Georgia, I just thought they both have shown small glimpses of potential that this team still sees in them. But they have to take that next step pretty quickly, especially if White is out for extended period of time and he can't come back. Uh, I think they've kind of signaled. Can you tell us more about that? Like, will White be back at least for the start of the season?
I would guess that he's back for the start of the season. McVay kind of talked about White a little bit. I think it was Tuesday. Um, they don't really have a firm timeline on it, but I would guess that just based on the timeline that that they do feel good about him being ready at least for the start of the season. I think it's kind of notable that I think it was the Rams team doctor that did the Achilles surgery on White, so they have a little bit of inside information there. But yeah, I'd expect him to be ready for week one. I think training camp is still up in the air, but I think as week one gets closer, I think he'll be ready.
Yeah. You got a other draft question, Zach?
No, it was more going into kind of the OTAs a little bit, going in from taking it from the draft to the OTAs. This is the first time that we've really got to see these new rookies in action. Blaine, do you have any initial reaction to some of the rookies coming out of OTAs?
Yes, I think one guy that I'd love to talk about a little bit is Blake Corum. He's a guy that McVay has kind of raved about in many of his, in a few of his press conferences, and availability and media availability. And I obviously Kyron Williams has been out throughout OTA, so Cora maybe got some more opportunity that he wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I think you kind of look back to last year, and there was kind of a very similar thing that happened. And I'm not saying that Blake Corum is the next Puka Nacua and is going to have as big of a season that Puka Nacua had, but obviously last year. You had Cooper Kupp kind of dealing with the hamstring, and Puka got more experience in training camp and more reps than he might have otherwise. And I think you kind of look at Blake Corum in this early part of OTAs, and I think these reps during this time of year are very key to his development, and I think that's noteworthy for sure. As far as kind of the others like Verse and Fist, it's kind of tough to see and kind of gauge how good they are at this point just because of there's no pads allowed or anything, obviously, and that part of the game is very 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 important too.
I mean, when you get into the OTAs, offense is really what you get to see the most of, because you can throw the ball, you can catch the ball, you can do some of those types of things. When you play defense without the pads, it's really hard to show off your skill set.
For sure, and I think Jordan, at least on the Athletic, has kind of mentioned Jordan Whittington a few times. I know he said a couple impressive plays, and I think I think the confidence they have in him is a reason why they moved on from Ben Skoranek. Um, just because Skoranek is the experience in the offense, this is his role on special teams. That was kind of a surprising move, but I think just kind of the how their confidence in Winnington, I think, was a reason for that move, and he kind of showed that in OTAs.
Yeah, and just focusing on Corum here, where's your opinion on, like, let's say they're both healthy going into week one? What do you think with McVay will be that split workload wise? Because I've always been content. I think it's going to be more 50-50, 60-40, like near even, with both like sharing the load and being as explosive. Because I was a big Blake Corum person going into draft. Where's your line with that?
I would say it's gonna be more 70-30 in favor of Kyron
Mm-hmm.
Williams. I do think I do think Blake Corum will have a role in the offense, but at the same time, um, Kyron Williams had an incredible year last year, and the offense,
Yeah,
quite frankly, wasn't the same with him off the field. Um, I love Blake Corum as a player. I think he's gonna be a big part of the offense, but I think people are a little bit too high on him right now. Um,
mm,
I think Corum will be a good. I can see a situation where like Kyron gets like two drives and then Blake Corum comes in for a drive to kind of give Kyron Williams a little bit of rest. I could also see just I think Blake Corum had like some insane number. I think it was 25 touchdowns or something like rushing touchdowns last year at Michigan. It was some insane number like that. Um,
27.
yeah, exactly. Even higher than 25. But yeah, I could see, but like Kyron Williams was really good in the red zone last year, but I could see that role going to Corum and
Mm-hmm.
him being that. Um, not maybe not a direct comparison, but similar to a David Montgomery kind of in this offense.
And Kyron Williams is a different kind of running back than we've kind of been used to for a little while at least. I mean, he's really good about sharing his knowledge, and like it doesn't feel like, yes, there's going to be some sort of a competition between the two of who's going to get more reps. But from the conversations that we've heard, at least from Sean McVay and things like that, that Kyron Williams is embracing Corum, especially since he wasn't really able to participate in a lot of the active things in OTAs. And I think that's a good mindset to have in this team. Is it's a truly a we not me team, and I think that's how we're going to see more success going forward. It's like Cooper Kupp staying in LA for Puka Nakua and for his teammates to become better. I think Kyron Williams has that kind of same mentality um, when it comes to Blake Corum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still. Oh, sorry.
you're good. I was just to say that I'm interested to see how the workload kind of does shape out because this offense really hasn't been a two running back offense in the past. I think they've kind of tried it a little bit with Williams and Cam Akers the last 2 years, and it just didn't it just didn't work out with Kyron Williams injury and then last year. Just with the whole Cam Akers situation, it just didn't work out. But so I'm interested to just kind of see it with that collaboration if it is more of a two running back offense.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just nuts to look back too on the whole Puka kind of saga, the way he excelled and grew. But also, like, you have to realize, like, it's funny watching his highlights and stuff and knowing he didn't know the play for like half of the plays he was on the field for. He would have to ask Cup, hey, Cup, what route am I running? I didn't hear, like, I didn't get anything from that play call. Like, and he's like growing and getting better. So hopefully, the rest of these rookies can kind of do the same and kind of take on that challenge. And we got a lot of, at least from all the interviews I watched, they all seem like upstanding kids, and hopefully they can grow into a bigger role with the team.
For sure. I mean, just the way this team has drafted the last 2 years, it just kind of that the development path and like you said, like kind of that we not me mindset. It really feels like they're drafting the right type of players,
Hmm.
and that's good for a team that really needs to add some young pieces for the future.
Hmm. And what's the biggest weakness on the roster, would you say, going into week one? Where do you think other teams are going to look to exploit week one going into the middle of the season?
I think it's still they did sign Darius Williams and Trey White, but it's still just I think the inexperience of the secondary. You still have and it's not even really inexperience because these guys like Darian Kendrick played a lot of snaps last year, but the quality of those snaps sometimes weren't where you would have wanted them to be. And then I think also just they are very they lost Jonah Williams to Minnesota in the offseason. He was a big part of their a big part of their defensive line rotation, especially in the run game. So and Fisk isn't the biggest guy. Kobe Turner's not the biggest guy. They just don't have a lot of size up front. So I mean, I'm interested to see kind of how that group does when it comes to stopping the run.
Mm. That's kind of a good point. I felt like they struggled early on last year too, and then got a lot better.
Yeah.
And they became top five. But the first 5 weeks, they were struggling there for a hot minute, and they started to catch on a little bit later. So hopefully we can start off a little bit hotter against the run, because I think the Seahawks were one of the teams that did really good against us in the run, and just like there's various teams, especially San Francisco, uh, that we're going to have to stop if we want to beat them and win the division this year. So,
For sure. Yep.
you got anything else with the draft and OTAs, Zach, that you wanted to ask about?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, this is the last year that the Rams will be playing at Cal Lutheran. For
Yeah,
those who don't know, they'll be moving on to their own facility. So, it's good for them.
hopefully. They've been saying that for years. So,
Well, I think the fields are pretty much outlined now. So I think they're going to be in a good place moving forward. So McVay can finally stop talking about the wind all the time. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to Blaine about was he just the big news. Everyone keeps asking week after week, month after month, what is up with Stafford and his contract? Blaine, I know you just had an article recently, kind of talking about Stafford's contract. In should he try to sit out training camp or even part of the season until they get a deal done. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a situation that I call it a little bit of a rain cloud. I think over Rams over the OTAs so far and in the offseason where there is a lot of excitement surrounding this team, especially coming off of an unexpected playoff run last year. But there's just kind of this one dark cloud that's the Matthew Stafford contract situation. And McVay said on Tuesday that he expects Stafford to be at training camp, and that's the expectation. And I would also agree with that. Stafford doesn't seem like the kind of player that would hold out. And it's very possible something gets done between now and training camp. I think there's 6 weeks before they report. But I think it's just something. It is, I think, interesting to think about, just because without this offense we saw last year, it goes nowhere without Matthew Stafford. The Brett Rippon game was a big point in the season, and I think Stafford has a lot of leverage in this situation where maybe some other big name quarterbacks might not. And I mean, if you look at it from Stafford's situation, I mean, this is a guy that I don't expect him to hold out. This guy that he's on the field when he's on the field when he probably has enough injuries where he probably shouldn't be on the field sometimes. The guy's an absolute warrior, but he also has no guaranteed money on his contract after the season, and it's kind of at this, like, I guess this crossroad where the Rams kind of have to commit to him again. Like,
Yeah.
if you add this guaranteed money, right now they would have an out after 2025, and I think if you look at the kind of construction of this roster and kind of where it's headed, 2025, I think, is the last final big push with this current core of players. As sad as that kind of is to think about, and after that 2025 season, they have an out with that in Matthew Stafford's contract. So you would give him guaranteed money over the final 2 years of that deal, and you remove that flexibility to move on from him if that's something that you wanted to do. And I would say that was something at least on their mind because they structured the contract that way.
Yeah, we know that Stafford isn't done. He thinks that he has more juice left in him to keep going. I mean, when we went back to his documentary a couple months ago, he wants to win more Super Bowls. He wants that jacket, that gold jacket, and he doesn't believe that he can get it with what he has currently. And so he wants more. The question is he healthy enough? Can he make it for the Rams to give him another 2-3 years to truly benefit him? But Stafford also isn't. He's not an Aaron Rodgers, And I feel like in an Aaron Rodgers situation, he would hold out until they made a deal. In this case, I feel like it's a detriment to Stafford if he holds out. He doesn't go to training camp. He loses that chemistry with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua, with his offense, and I think he has come to a friendship with staff or with McVay, with the front office people. I think that there's going to be a deal done. It's just going to take some time to find out what's the right thing that the Rams can tolerate and that Stafford is happy with. Any kind of downfall from that communication, sure, could bring some strain. But I think him showing up is showing that he is committed to this team, committed to keep moving, keep going forward. And I think the Rams, kind of owe him in that as well.
Yeah, and then, I mean they've done a really good job taking care of players, especially key players in the past when it comes to contracts, and I would expect them to do the same here. It really wouldn't be surprising if they did get something done over these next 6 weeks, and kind of just clearly aired going into training camp when things get a little more serious. And honestly, like I don't think it has to do with the amount. I mean, even if you if you do look at his average annual value, I think it's $40 million, but which is kind of in that Daniel Jones range, which is kind of scary. It's scary to think about. But I mean, if you look at his cap hit over the next 2 years, it's still I think in the top 5 among quarterbacks. It's really that guaranteed money that seems to be the problem. And I guess if you look at a past example here, the Rams kind of structured a similar deal with Aaron Donald toward the end of his career, where they didn't add any years or anything. They just essentially gave him a slight pay. They essentially tore up the old contract and gave him a slight pay raise that included some more guarantees, and that lasted on to the end of his career. And I would assume that they try to structure a similar type of deal here.
I don't see Stafford wanting. I don't think he wants to move on to another team. I mean, it takes a lot to move on to another team. It takes a lot to get into the culture. He likes where he's at here. So I get where he says that he does have a lot of leverage, but I think the Rams also have a little bit of leverage when it comes to, what. Yes, he could get more money somewhere else, but is that what he wants in the long term, or does he wants money plus he wants Super Bowl, and can he get that same chemistry moving on to another team that may not have the weapons or the mindset that the Rams currently have?
Exactly, and just going back to your point earlier about him wanting that gold jacket, him kind of having that awareness, sort of in the back of his mind, like moving on from the Rams, going somewhere else. He's not going to have an offensive-minded coach to the level of McVay, and he's really built a solid chemistry with receivers like Cooper Kupp, like Puka Nacua. So moving on for him probably isn't the best move. So there's some leverage on both sides, but hopefully they get something done and everybody can kind of move into training camp in the season on a good note.
And this is the time period right now that they kind of really start working on those contracts. I mean, really before June would have been kind of feels like it would have been way too soon to get something done. This is normal time frame, it seems, going back and looking at some of the Rams' history, up into even mid-July of when they usually get some of these deals done.
Exactly.
Well, talking about that, Blaine, is it a mistake for this front office not to reach a deal with him before all these other QBs are getting these massive blockbuster deals? I know it's a little apples to oranges. A lot of these QBs are younger, on their first going into their second contract. How's that kind of dichotomy with them getting signed? Like, that could put pressure on the front office to be like, hey, get a deal done because these guys are getting paid. That's going to make your star guy feel bad.
Yeah, I think it's more notable if you look at someone like Dak Prescott, who's on the final year of his deal and looking to get an extension with the Cowboys. I think where it's kind of different from the Rams and Stafford's point of view is that, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily an issue with the amount that he's getting paid. I mean, I potentially, they with a new deal, they give him a slight raise, of which would kind of increase his average annual value a little bit, but um, it seems to be just an issue with the guaranteed money, and if that's something that they can work out, I think a deal gets done. But yeah, I mean these quarterback deals are getting
I mean,
insane right now. I mean, Trevor Lawrence just signed a huge deal today. Um,
Yep.
when Tua's deal gets done, that's going to be absolutely astronomical. And I think there's a side conversation there on whether or not a guy like Tua should be a quarterback of Tua's caliber should be getting paid that much. But yeah, I don't think it affects the Rams and Stafford too much. I think it's more of like you look at the Cowboys who are just kind of sitting back with Dak
it,
Prescott, and that's
it feels
not going to be fun for them.
it feels like people are making this a bigger deal than it really is. It's just this is a conversation that's happening in the background. They're letting the back offices and the agents handle the information. We're still here to play football until things really go downhill. But it seems like people just keep asking the question because it's there and they don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, the Stafford elbow situation a couple of years ago, which is kind of like nothing to talk about all offseason. So let's talk about the guys about an elbow injury that the Rams are kind of dismissing a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next question. So we talked a little bit about the offense side of things, but let's go to the defense. Blaine, I'm going to go to you again because, again, I love reading your content over at the Turf Show Times. Another one that you kind of came out with within the past, I think, week was, do the Rams have the most valuable defensive front in the NFL? Can you dive into that, just briefly to kind of give people an idea of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, this defensive front, I think, is super intriguing. I think there's a lot of potential here. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, they just lost Aaron Donald, and that's obviously a huge hit to that position group. But I think there's also a lot of upside. I mean, you look at Kobe Turner and how he didn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year last year is just kind of baffling to me. But I mean, you look at his deeper analytics, and this is a guy that's just he's producing kind of at the same levels as Justin Madueke from in Baltimore. I think yes, the Rams are losing Aaron Donald, but Kobe Turner is a guy that is
A
he's yeah
monster.
I think he's going to be a big part of this defensive line moving forward, and he's only going to get better. So and then you look at kind of where they got him, and it's in the third round, and they're paying him, I think, 1.3 or $1.4 million this year. So I think just kind of when you look at, you have all these guys on rookie deals and out producing those deals, it makes it very, 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 very valuable in terms of building this overall defense.
And let's not forget the first 7 games, both Turner and Byron Young, they struggled a little bit and they had to grow into their roles. And then the last 5 games, like a lot of those stats came in the last 7 or 8 games of that season too. So like you really start to see him step it up a notch. And yeah, we'll have to see how Kobe Turner does when he gets a lot more attention because Aaron Donald won't be eating triple and double teams on a dated or on a snap to snap basis. So it's going to be a challenge for him to grow into that number one guy role.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge that he'll be up for. I mean, McVay, I think, kind of talked about Kobe Turner this week, and was just kind of impressed with how he's been taking guys under his wing, and it's been I think one of the kind of the themes of OTAs has just kind of been like the collaboration. You have Kyren Williams and Blake Corum kind of collaborating at running back, and then on the defensive line, like just from what McVay was saying, Kobe Turner's kind of been that leader on the defensive line, which is exactly what they need him to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing about how Aaron Donald had kind of like a silent leadership. He wasn't a very vocal leader. He was more of like he led with his example. Like he would be in first thing in the morning and last one out. He's that type person where like his presence just exude so much excellence that people would continue to kind of like push with him and grow with him. Zach, what are you kind of looking forward to on this D line? Like,
I'm super interested in all of this young defensive front that we have. I mean, I feel like they have a lot of speed. They have some, some energy in them. They really want to step up. They know what shoes they have to fill. They
mm,
know who they are being taken and kind of thrown in there. Like they don't have Aaron Donald anymore, so they know that they have to. Again, you can't replace Aaron Donald, but they know that they're filling in that void. And I think they have a little bit of spunk in them about that. They really want to prove that this is a good move, and the Rams are truly, getting an investment by investing in them. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to see Ernest Jones. I mean, he's gonna be the leader of that defense, and I'm really excited to see what he does as leader to make sure that he's communicating well with the young guys up front and kind of the more veteran secondary, and kind of just leading that charge. So it's going to be very interesting. Um, I am very optimistic about this defense. I'm just hopeful that again, when we talk about, I think that these defense can be truly valuable. I just hope that they're not too green, to not to not help the team win the games. Because again, offensives can do so much, but if you start losing the ball to the other side and you can't let stop the other opponent's offense, it's going to start going downhill fast.
Let me
yeah,
let, 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 let me let me flip the script a little bit. I'm kind of interested to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I guess
mhm.
there were a lot of candidates, I think, for the defensive coordinator position, and McVay goes, I think, a route that I think some maybe didn't necessarily expect him to go in, and hiring within and went with a guy like Chris Shula. So I guess kind of what did you guys think of that hire?
Well, I was gonna say, I think a big thing this year will be how do they adjust the scheme? Because our defense has been so ingrained with Aaron Donald taking up as much attention to the point where teams have to reorganize their entire playbook to play against us and what Donald can do. So, like, how does he adjust? How does he morph and transform this defense with the personnel it has to adjust for that loss or that lack of attention, that lack of pressure up the middle? And that's why it's a bright idea to go and get an edge, a young edge that can go with Byron Young. Him and Jared Verse can work together to apply more edge pressure, which this team, outside of getting Von Miller, has really struggled in the last 6, 7 years with edge pressure for a majority of those 7 years. So, can we get edge pressure now and not have to rely on that interior pressure? It's nice if you can get great interior pressure. I just think we're going to see more stereotypical interior pressure, not like what we saw with Aaron Donald. And so fans are going to have to adjust expectations there and what the front can do. And it's going to look different. And can Schuler weaponize that effectively, especially with our challenges in the secondary? It,
to
look,
me, to me, I almost think this was a smart move. I mean, I was either thinking it was going to be him or even Audrey Pleasant if they were going to stay within the organization. And the reason why I like Shula is because he's been around for the length of time of Sean McVay's uh, tenure here.
yeah,
He was with Wade Phillips. He was with Brandon Staley. He's with Raheem Morris. So he's understand these different ideas and what has made this Rams defense so threatening over the last years. And I think this is it's a good move. They're pretty close friends, and I think when you have that kind of friendship, you can also have that kind of heart to heart. Like, I really think we need to move in this direction and be able to have that kind of working relationship that can really take this team to the next level and take the coaching to the next level.
mm. Do we want to talk about Brandon Staley going to the 49ers?
I don't ever
Let's
want
put
to talk about the
yeah,
49ers.
let's pretend that didn't happen.
Do you guys think he got a job there just because Shanahan? I feel like Shanahan is that best friend that is like super petty in your fantasy league that will like just pick a player because he knows you like it like 3 or 4 rounds above just to tick you off. Like I feel like Shanahan and McVay have that kind of relationship. Is that just me? Like I feel like he got Staley. Staley's a smart mind, especially in the NFL, but to go to the 49ers seems like a weird fit for me.
It is,
I,
but I think this team has changed a lot since Staley was around. So other than knowing kind of a little bit of Sean McVay's tendencies, which I think Shanahan already knew anyways. I mean, like, let's just say he's had McVay's number for a long time now. Like that hasn't changed. I don't think bringing Staley on is going to add anything more to what's happened in the past.
I mean, he doesn't have his secret weapon anymore, Jimmy G. So like, just saying, we got Jimmy. We traded. We
I
got Jimmy G.
honestly, I think Jimmy G is a better resource
Staley.
for the Rams than Brandon Staley is a resource for the 49ers.
I like bringing back
When
Staley. I like
I
the
would say,
idea.
and that is only for informational purposes only. I'm not going to speak to how Staley's going to do and other things, but like as far as an information gathering about the opposing team, I think Jimmy G will give us a better opportunity than Brandon Staley for the 49ers.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. So another thing that kind of came out this week is how do the Rams seem to they don't think they're going to make any big splashes here during free agency. Um, any thoughts about that?
I don't think they made I don't think they made a splash in terms of maybe not that flashy receiver or like flashy edge rusher obviously, but I do think that like I do think it was big to bring back Kevin Dotson. I think it was technically a free agent signing just because they got done right at the beginning of free agency. But bringing him back was huge, just kind of like what he did, for the run game last year. And then I think adding Jonah Jackson too. I think
Yeah,
he's that like it's not the splashy move, but I think it's the right move. And
very underrated.
slotting him at left guard and just I think that impact that Kevin Dotson had on the right side last year, Jonas Jackson will have on the left side this year, and then just this offensive line as a whole is going to be I think really good this year. Just from a size perspective, they're probably one of the biggest groups in the NFL.
Yeah, we're upgrading center and left guard. Like, how can you? I would say staying around the same at left guard. Like, I really love Jonah Jackson, especially what he can do in the run game. And you mix that with the upgrade at center, which Avila I would expect to excel in that position. Reports are he's done great so far at center. So like you get those two on the line, and hopefully Havenstein can keep on showing like he's a fountain of youth and doesn't show any signs of aging. The only thing we have to worry about is left tackle, and hopefully he can Jackson can continue to grow there.
For sure, yeah. I like you said. I mean, obviously he has experience at center at TCU. Played center there, and then Rob Havenstein's been kind of like that, just the epitome of solid there on the right side ever since he's been on the team. And then I think Jackson that might be the weak spot on the offensive line there at left tackle, but he for an undrafted free agent, talk about getting value and finding your starting left tackle as an undrafted free agent is just incredible scouting. And,
Yeah,
he had really good moments last year for sure.
yeah, yeah. You want to go ahead and talk about the schedule a little bit before we
Yeah, let's
close
do it.
out? So Blaine, I think was it Andy that asked me, Zach, what would be our first game, and I said I thought it would be the Lions, and I was correct. I thought that was a great idea for a first week, even though I think we got cheated a little bit at the end of that Lions game. It was still a great game. Good victory by the Lions. But we can get a little bit of revenge here. What's your general response to this schedule, Blaine? What games are you looking forward to seeing? What games are you not looking forward to seeing? Where are the strengths and weaknesses of the schedule?
Um, I, I think everybody's getting excited for the Lions game in Week 1, and myself included. But also, I don't think the Lions would have been my first choice to play in Week 1, just because of the expectations that the Lions have this year. Just there's a lot of excitement surrounding that team, and then um, I just putting that game in prime time at Ford Field. That game's that stadium is gonna be just as electric as it was for the wild card game. It's nothing the Rams I don't think won't be able to handle, and I wouldn't just mark that game as a loss by any means, but I would have preferred that game at 1 o'clock on a Sunday in Week 7 instead. Um,
Mm,
I think as far as the other games I'm looking forward to, I think the Dolphins game kind of later in the season could be really fun. Just the both teams kind of raw defenses and very electric offenses, so that could be a fun high scoring game. Um, and then I think another fun one, kind of very underrated, and one that hopefully people aren't overlooking is the game against Chicago. I think that's a team. I think they hired Shane Waldron as their offensive coordinator this offseason. Obviously, you have the Caleb Williams. They had some fun receivers. So that could be, that could end up being a really fun game as well. And honestly, with if the Bears improve like some think they will, that may have some playoff implications as well.
mm. Yeah, it kind of shocks me, Blaine, because like looking over the schedule, this could be like the schedule could be very hard or like easier than people expect because you look at some of these teams, there's so many variables where like I feel like for example people think the Eagles are going to be a very good team, like that could be a great primetime game for us to go and just watch and see how they do. But the Eagles kind of fell apart at the end of last year. And do they continue to fall apart? And we've seen teams do this in the past where they end the season so badly and they continue that on the season afterwards. And the coach kind of loses confidence in the locker room. So, can the Eagles be kind of a mess? New Orleans doesn't look like it'll be that hot this year. Buffalo had the completely collapsed their roster uh, after what their GM said. The Jets could also be one of those teams that people are very high on and just fall apart again. So, like, a lot of these teams have big question marks. I would say Miami's going to be a tough game. Green Bay should be a tough game. And San
It,
Francisco twice.
it seems like we're going to be on a roller coaster ride. It doesn't seem like we really
Yeah,
have like a super easy beginning, a super easy middle, or a super easy end. It's like,
yeah.
it's going to be that couple games here and there that we may have a stretch for. Again, depending on how, the teams that we're facing show up that week.
Yeah, we don't have a death stretch of like 4 or 5 games. We just have pockets of like 1 or 2 games tough, and then 2 or 3 games that should be not walking parks because we always lose to one team that we shouldn't, and we typically always beat one team we shouldn't. So that's
To me, the hardest thing is going to be that week 6 bye. It's just so early in the season.
yeah,
Um,
that's
and
brutal.
going after that, now you're just making a run and basically into the Super Bowl. So it's gonna be crucial that they take these longer mini buys that they get with some of these primetime games and really utilizing those to the fullest, which the Rams typically do.
Yeah. We did get lucky weather-wise because the only bad weather game that's not at home that we have to play is New York. Because that's going to be in the middle of December 22nd. So that's going to be a bad weather game. But outside of that, like we're not playing at Buffalo. We don't have to worry about that. New England is in November, so you could potentially have some bad weather there, but I that shouldn't
That
be
should
too.
That Chicago game in Chicago, that's like early November too, isn't it? Like that's not
Week 4.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's in
it's super
September,
early.
so like
That's yeah, that's yeah,
I'm get lucky there.
that could have been a lot worse as well, and having to play at Soldier Field there, and when it's
Yeah,
cold
well,
and
that was
windy and
my.
everything.
So that is the one game that I'm really trying to get to. That in Detroit. So I was really hoping that before the schedule came out that they didn't put it in December, because that would have been miserable to be in Soldier Field in December.
Yeah, for sure. But to your point on the resting though, the week 6 bye, I think they have like a late Thursday. Do they have two Thursday night games late in the season, or just one, where you kind of get that mini bye to kind of, yeah. So you get a couple mini buys there late to kind of recoup if they need to, which like obviously playing on a short week. On a short week and stuff, like I think they have Buffalo. I think coming on a short week after playing the 49ers, which I think is tough, or maybe a swap 49ers on the Thursday after playing Buffalo. I think that'll be a tough little stretch, but having that extra rest late in the season could pay dividends.
Let's see. They get to play New England after a Monday night game, so that's a short week. That's not too bad. No. Let me look at the second 49ers game. Yeah, so we have to play the 49ers Thursday night after playing Buffalo. So that's not gonna be fun. And then play the Jets. So that stretch of 3 games is gonna be that's gonna be a little bit more difficult right there. Buffalo, San Fran, and then New York.
Right.
Let's see.
Well, like I said, my get 2 games. I'm really hoping to get to Detroit. I'm really hoping to get to Chicago. Hopefully, maybe make it out to SoFi, but it'll be kind of a stretch this year. But any day that there's a Rams game, I'm going to be looking forward to.
But
Yep. I think I will probably try to either go to New York because I can drive there, or maybe Chicago. I've been talking to the wife about potentially doing that, but we'll see. Yeah. What about you, Blaine? You can try to catch any of the games
I
or
wanted to
be
try to
there?
hit the I wanted to try to hit the Detroit game, but my brother decided to plan his wedding right that same weekend. So unfortunately, my brother will be getting married that weekend, and I am the best man, so I can't miss that, unfortunately. But then I don't know. Maybe Chicago. Maybe if I it is relatively close to where I'm at, so that one might be a nice little quick flight or drive, make a weekend out of it. But definitely probably gonna try to do the Jets game. Just it's like a 3 hour drive for me, so I can
Yeah.
make it pretty easily.
Is that a wedding at the same time as the game?
I don't think so. I think the wedding is on the Sunday, and the game thankfully is on the Monday. So yeah.
I'm just saying, I got lucky last year because I had a prior engagement planned for the Cowboys game, so I wasn't able to watch it, and I was just watching with horror as kids were trick or treating at my car, doing the trick or trunk, and just seeing the nightmare of stuff happen. Uh, and I was like, I'm happy I'm not watching this game because I'm upset just reading it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, maybe it's a good thing. Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows?
All right. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. Big shout out to Blaine. Blaine, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We love having you on. We love having your insights on. Please go check him out. Check out all his articles over at the Turf Show Times, turfshowtimes.com. And Blaine, what's your X handle?
You can follow me at B Grisak TST.
Yes, please do. Please do. For us, you can find us at East Coast Rams on X. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/at East Coast Rams. Please like and subscribe to all the stuff that we're doing. Again, without you guys listening in, that's why we do the podcast. So please make sure you do that. You can find us on our own personals at RamFanAshton1, at Zach Mayer. And again, we just really appreciate everyone who takes the time to listen each and every week. We are getting one step closer to getting more Rams content. We got training camp next, which is in about 5 weeks. So they get about a 5-week break.
Yeah, it's like I think it's 6 weeks officially. Yeah,
6 weeks. Okay, so we get a little bit of break. We'll pop in from time to time with some news. Blaine, hopefully we can get you back on before the season starts to kind of get your initial thoughts on how the season will go. But yeah, anything else you want to add?
Maybe could have some reaction to the preseason games too.
for sure. Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting kind of to see how this roster kind of shakes out too. If there's any other surprising cuts and whatnot. But yeah, no, thanks you guys. Thank you guys again for having me on. Always have a blast, and yeah, hopefully we can make it happen again before the season.
Yes, and maybe we'll get to see you at one of the games this year.
Maybe.
Looking forward to all of that. All right, with that, everybody, we are out. We will see you guys next time. Whose house? Rams house.